So you finally did it. You finally stopped pretending, stopped bending, stopped breaking yourself into pieces just to fit into their narrow little boxes. And now they're looking at you like you've lost your mind, like something inside you shattered, like you've become someone they don't recognize anymore. But here's what they'll never admit. What keeps them awake at night, staring at their ceiling, trying to make sense of what happened. You didn't lose yourself. You found yourself. And that terrifies them more than anything. Before we go deeper, if this resonates with you, if you've ever felt like you were wearing a mask just to keep the peace, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're about to talk about the transformation they don't want you to understand. The one that changes everything. Look at you now, standing there with that fire in your eyes, that edge in your voice they've never heard before. They're dissecting every move you make, analyzing every word you say, spreading rumors in their group chats, trying desperately to figure out when you changed, what broke you, what turned you into this. And you know what's hilarious? They think something went wrong. They think you had a breakdown, a mental collapse, a moment of madness that corrupted who you really are. But we both know the truth, don't we? Nothing broke, nothing changed, nothing went wrong. You just stopped lying. You stopped performing. You stopped sacrificing your authenticity on the altar of their comfort. That moment they keep talking about, that decision they can't stop replaying, that move they never saw coming. It wasn't a breakdown. It was a breakthrough. It was you finally giving yourself permission to exist without their approval, without their validation, without their pathetic little rule book that was designed to keep you small, manageable, and under control. See, they fell in love with a version of you that didn't exist. They fell in love with the mask, the performance, the carefully edited highlight reel you presented to keep the peace. They loved you when you were agreeable, when you swallowed your truth to make room for their lies, when you dimmed your light so they wouldn't feel inadequate in your presence. They loved you controllable. They loved you predictable. They loved you when you were a character in their story, not the author of your own. But then you did something unforgivable. You stopped acting. You stopped apologizing for taking up space. You stopped explaining yourself to people who were never trying to understand you in the first place. And that simple act of reclaiming your authenticity destroyed their entire narrative. It burned down the comfortable little fiction they'd built around who you were supposed to be. Here's what they won't tell you. They thought you were weak because you were kind. They mistook your patience for stupidity. They confused your forgiveness with amnesia, like you somehow forgot every lie, every betrayal, every tiny manipulation they tried to slip past you when they thought you weren't paying attention. But you were always watching, weren't you? You were always counting. You were always calculating. Every time you chose peace, you were choosing it consciously, deliberately, strategically. Not because you had no other option, but because you were still deciding if they deserved the alternative. And then one day the equation changed. The cost of tolerating their nonsense finally exceeded the benefit of keeping them around. The math stopped making sense. And you made your move. Clean. Surgical. Final. No drama. No explanation. No emotional labor spent trying to make them understand why you were done. You just left. And that's what they can't forgive. Not what you did, but how easily you did it. How little you seemed to struggle with a decision that should have torn you apart. They wanted you to hesitate. They needed you to doubt yourself. They were counting on you to come crawling back, apologizing for having boundaries, begging for another chance to be disrespected. But instead, you just vanished from their reality like they were nothing, like they meant nothing. Like all those years, all those memories, all those moments they thought gave them permanent access to you meant absolutely nothing when weighed against your peace. You didn't snap out of nowhere. That's the lie they're selling to anyone who'll listen. You didn't have some random emotional explosion that caught everyone by surprise. No, You calculated. You planned. You waited for exactly the right moment, and then you struck with the precision of someone who's been preparing for this their entire life. That thing you did wasn't chaos. It was the most deliberate, intentional, strategic decision you've ever made. And they know it. Deep down, they know it. And that's what's eating them alive. Let's talk about what's really happening here. When you stopped performing for them, when you stopped managing their emotions, when you stopped making yourself smaller to make them feel bigger, something fundamental shifted. The air around you got colder. Your presence carries weight now. Your silence has teeth. Your smile doesn't reach your eyes anymore, and that unsettles them more than any words ever could. They're used to reading, you see, used to predicting your reactions, used to knowing exactly which buttons to push to get you back in line. But now the manual doesn't work. Now their manipulation tactics bounce off you like rain off stone. Now every guilt trip they attempt just exposes them further while you stand there unmoved, watching them scramble. And that's when the real panic sets in. Because they realize you're not playing the game anymore. You didn't rage quit. You didn't flip the board. You didn't even raise your voice. You just stood up, looked at them with eyes that have seen too much and forgiven too often, and walked away like they were furniture. Background noise, irrelevant. And nothing destroys a manipulator faster than being treated as irrelevant. They'd rather you hate them because hate means they still have power over your emotions. But indifference is the sound of their power dying, and they can hear it, and it's driving them insane. Now watch the way they look at you. You've seen it, haven't you? That mixture of fear and fascination, like they're studying a dangerous animal through safety glass. They want to understand what happened to you, but they don't want to get close enough to risk getting burned. So they ask their little probing questions, trying to map your emotional state, trying to find cracks in this new armor, trying to locate the old you somewhere underneath this transformation. But every time they look, they just see their own reflection staring back. And they hate what they see. You've become a mirror they've been avoiding their entire lives. The one that shows them exactly who they are without the filters, without the excuses, without the comfortable lies they tell themselves at 3 a.m. to justify their behavior. You didn't become cruel. You became honest. You didn't become cold. You became efficient. You didn't become heartless. You just stopped giving your heart to people who were using it for target practice. And there's a precision to you now, a clarity, a sharpness that makes them nervous. You move through the world like someone who knows exactly how much time they have and refuses to waste another second on performances that don't serve them. You speak less. You observe more. You choose your battles, not because you're afraid of fighting, but because most battles aren't worthy of your energy anymore. And that selectiveness, that discernment, it reads as arrogance to people who are used to you giving everyone equal access. But here's what they'll never understand. That moment they can't stop analyzing. That decision they can't stop dissecting. It wasn't the beginning of your villain arc. It was the end of your people-pleasing era. It wasn't you becoming someone new. It was you finally giving yourself permission to be who you've always been when nobody was watching. The version of you that doesn't apologize for existing. The version that doesn't perform gratitude for the bare minimum. The version that doesn't shrink to accommodate their ego. That version was always there. Always. Sitting quietly in the passenger seat, watching you drive carefully between everyone else's boundaries while they trampled yours. And one day, you just switched seats. You let the real driver take the wheel. And now they're scrambling to figure out how to interact with this version. They're testing boundaries they used to ignore. They're watching their words around you. They're second-guessing actions they used to do without thinking. And they're frustrated because you're not giving them a manual. You're not explaining the new rules. You're just existing in your truth and letting them figure it out. And that lack of instruction, that refusal to guide them through your own boundaries, it's driving them absolutely insane. They want you to tell them how to fix it, how to get back to normal, how to restore the dynamic where they were comfortable and you were convenient. But you're not interested in their comfort anymore. You paid for your peace with years of discomfort, years of swallowing your truth, years of biting your tongue until it bled. And you'll be damned if you're going to give it back now just because they're finally experiencing a fraction of what you endured. Here's what really happened, and pay attention because this is the part they're too terrified to say out loud. When you made that move, when you did that thing they're still gossiping about, you didn't just change the dynamic between you and them. You jumped frequencies. You shifted dimensions. You exited their reality entirely and started building your own. And now when they try to reach you, they're calling a disconnected number. They're sending letters to an address you don't live at anymore. They're speaking a language you've unlearned. The distance between who you were and who you are now isn't measured in months or miles. It's measured in lifetimes. You're not the same person who walked into that situation. You're not even the same species. You know what's wild? They wanted you to break. They needed you to shatter into a million pieces so they could step over you on their way to their next victim. It would have validated their entire worldview. It would have confirmed that people like you, people with boundaries and standards and self-respect, can't survive in a world like this. But instead of breaking, you evolved. You took everything they threw at you, every betrayal, every lie, every moment they chose themselves over you, and you transmuted it into something they don't have language for yet. You turned your pain into power they can't access. And now they're stuck watching you thrive on a frequency they can't reach, stuck seeing you glow with an energy that doesn't come from their validation, stuck realizing that everything they took from you, you didn't actually need in the first place. You were carrying dead weight and calling it loyalty. You were feeding vampires and calling it friendship. You were accepting crumbs and calling it love. And when you finally cut the cord, you didn't fall. You flew. And that's what haunts them. That's what keeps them scrolling through your life, looking for signs of the breakdown they predicted. Because you're not broken. You're not bitter. You're not destroyed. You're just done. And done is so much scarier than angry could ever be. That thing you did was a declaration of independence. It was you signing your own emancipation proclamation. It was the moment you stopped waiting for permission to live in your full power and just seized it with both hands. You didn't ask if it was okay. You didn't check if anyone would be hurt by your liberation. You didn't perform the emotional labor of making your freedom comfortable for people who were comfortable with your oppression. You just moved. Clean, fast, final, and the shockwaves are still rippling through their reality because they've never seen someone exit the matrix so smoothly. Most people rage quit. Most people burn everything down on their way out. But you just vanished like you were never there at all, like they were a chapter in a book you closed and shelved and will never open again. And now they're dealing with the consequences of underestimating you. They're sitting in the ruins of the narrative they built around who they thought you were, realizing they never had the right person in the first place. They were in love with a ghost, arguing with a hologram, manipulating a mannequin, while the real you was always somewhere else, taking notes, building escape routes, planning your exit with the patience of someone who understands that revenge is a dish best served cold, and freedom is a dish best served on your own terms. Let's go deeper. Let's talk about what they're really afraid of when they look at you now. It's not that you changed. We've established that lie already. It's that you revealed capacities they never knew you had. Capacities for ruthlessness when necessary, for detachment when required, for cutting people off with the precision of a surgeon removing a tumor. They thought those traits belonged only to people who were born cold, people who never felt anything. But you proved something far more terrifying. That warmth and kindness aren't weaknesses, they're choices. Choices made by people strong enough to also choose violence and simply deciding not to. You showed them that the gentle person is only gentle by choice, and that choice can be revoked at any moment, without warning, without explanation, without apology. They're scrambling now, trying to retrofit their understanding of you to include this new data. Trying to reconcile the person who used to laugh at their jokes with the person who now looks through them like glass. Trying to figure out when the switch happened, what they missed, what warning signs they overlooked. But here's the thing, there was no switch. There were no signs. You've always had this in you, the capacity to walk away, the strength to say no, the courage to burn bridges that were only leading you in circles anyway. The only thing that changed is you finally gave yourself permission to act on it. And that's the revelation keeping them up at night. Because if they missed this in you, what else are they missing? In everyone around them? In themselves? You've become a walking reminder that people are deeper, more complex, more capable than the roles assigned to them. You shattered the box they put you in so completely that they can't even use the pieces to build a new one. You're uncategorizable now, uncontrollable, unpredictable in the most magnificent way. They can't use your past behavior to predict your future moves because you've demonstrated complete reinvention capability. And in a world where people cling desperately to the illusion of knowing and controlling others, you've become chaos incarnate. Not the destructive kind that burns everything randomly, but the creative kind that reshapes reality according to will rather than circumstance. You're not reacting to their world anymore. You're building your own, and they're not on the guest list. Now watch what happens next, because this is where it gets beautiful. Some of them will try to come back, not because they miss you, but because they can't stand the idea of you thriving without them. They'll show up with apologies that sound rehearsed, explanations that don't explain anything, promises that expire before they're even made. They'll want to understand your secret, want to know how you did it, want to maybe absorb some of whatever energy you're radiating now. But here's where you get to practice your new favorite skill: discernment without explanation. You don't owe them a breakdown of your healing process. You don't owe them a roadmap to the peace you fought wars to find. You don't owe them anything except maybe a polite smile and a closed door. Because here's what you know now that you didn't know before. Access to you is a privilege, not a right. Your energy is currency, not charity. Your time is finite and therefore priceless. Your peace is hard-won and therefore non-negotiable. You're not building a life anymore. You're curating an experience. And not everyone gets a ticket. Some people were only meant to be in your origin story, not your victory lap. Some relationships were only meant to teach you what not to tolerate, not what to build a future around. And that thing you did, it was you finally accepting that truth and acting accordingly, without apology, without explanation, without the emotional labor of making your growth comfortable for people who were comfortable with your stagnation. They're going to write their own version of events. They're going to tell anyone who'll listen their side of the story, paint themselves as victims of your sudden cruelty, your unexpected coldness, your inexplicable transformation. And you're going to let them, not because you're afraid of the truth, but because you're no longer interested in managing their narrative. Let them spin their tales. Let them build their myths about who you were and what you became. You'll be too busy living in your truth to worry about their fiction. Because here's the secret they'll never learn. Defending yourself to people who are determined to misunderstand you is like teaching philosophy to a brick wall, exhausting, pointless, and ultimately beneath you. Your real testimony isn't in your words, it's in your results. And your results speak a language they're not fluent in yet. So what now? Now you walk forward without looking back. Now you build without explaining your blueprints. Now you rise without asking if anyone's ready to see you at this altitude. Now you exist in your full truth, the one that includes both the light they loved and the darkness they feared, integrated into something they don't have a word for yet, something uniquely, unapologetically you. That thing you did wasn't an ending or a beginning. It was a revelation, a pulling back of the curtain to show what was always there, waiting, patient, ready. You didn't become a villain or a hero. You became honest. You became whole. You became real. And real, unfiltered, unashamed realness is the most revolutionary thing you can be in a world built on performance and pretense. They're still talking about it because they're still trying to process it, still trying to find the moment where you changed so they can predict where you'll go next. But they're looking in the wrong place. You didn't change, you revealed. And revelation, true revelation, can't be predicted or controlled or reversed. It can only be witnessed, remembered, and if they're wise, learned from. So let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them stay up late trying to decode the mystery of how someone so kind could be so ruthless, how someone so gentle could be so final, how someone they thought they knew could become someone they can't recognize. While they're busy analyzing the past, you'll be busy building the future. And that future? It doesn't include anyone who needed you to stay small to feel big. It doesn't include anyone who mistook your kindness for weakness. It doesn't include anyone who thought your patience was permission to keep crossing lines. That thing you did closed one chapter and opened another. And this new chapter is written in a language only you can speak, in a voice only you can hear, for an audience of one. You. Welcome home to yourself. It's been a long journey back. But now that you're here, now that you've stopped performing for the cheap seats, now that you've remembered who you've always been underneath all that armor disguised as politeness, well, now the real story begins.